it is a little later than expected. It's Sunday night. It's 8 o'clock. I usually get on around 5 o'clock, but I had things to do tonight. And last week, I think I shared around what do we do in the face of disappointment, like with the idea of how do we be resilient in that. But then this last week, after I did that, I had some situations where I created my own disappointment, really and truly disappointment in myself in how I handled some communication. And I sure wish I could take it back. But like you, I'm constantly learning and constantly having a desire to do better. I'm taking a class right now on communication, as it so turns out, and how to really inspire. And I think one of the questions or one of the ideas that came up that I found really helpful was the idea of how do we speak to be heard is one way that we speak. And I think the majority of us truly speak to be heard. We want our points to go across. We want our messages to land. But there's another way, and this is from Lisa Nichols, that we can talk, and that is the art of enrollment. And that being thinking around how can we better manage how our message is going to land. And she gave such a great analogy that we can have a message, right? And the message that is something important that we want to get across to people. And let's say, and she gave the analogy of a steak. You can serve up a steak, and that would be the message, right? And it's the same steak, tender and juicy and well cooked. And you could either A, serve it up on a garbage can lid, or B, you could serve it up on a silver platter. And which is going to be more appealing? And of course, if you're me, I want to eat off the silver platter. I don't want to eat steak off a garbage can lid. Honestly, I don't want to eat steak at all since I'm a vegetarian. But anyway, nothing to do with that. But it really got me thinking about how do we speak in such a way, because our words are generative. We create our worlds with our voice, with the messages that we give. And how do we create our messages in such a way, that steak, right? That it is served on a silver platter, that it is wanted and desired, and not, if you got two steaks that were exactly the same, if you served one up on a garbage can lid and one on a silver tray, I'm going to push away the one from the garbage can lid. I don't even want that. But you give me the one on the silver tray, and I'm like, yeah. But here's the deal. It's the same one. And I think it's the difference. The garbage can lid is this idea of speaking to be heard. That's the garbage can lid. It's speaking to get my point across, to make sure I'm heard. And listen, this is an important lesson for me, because I, for so long in my life, did not speak up, did not speak my truth. And so I'm still trying to figure out, even at my tender age of 54, of how to do this well. And how do I say the same message with a different tone, with a different intentionality of thinking, how would they best hear it? What do I want them to think, feel, or do after hearing this message? Not just what do I want to say and how do I want to be heard, but thinking, how can I impact my audience better? And I think that is her idea behind how do we enroll people in our conversations. And by that, how do we inspire people with our conversations so they really want to lean in when we want them to think and feel and do something? And that's the idea of finding out what's important to the people you're speaking to versus just speaking what you need to say. And boy, that has come true, clarify for me this last week. So 2 examples. I've been thinking on them for the past week because I did not show up in a way that I'd want to show up. First example, someone reached out to me and with a request that I get an awful lot. They just wanted to speak to me, but they used a phrase that just triggers me. And if you're watching this, please take this to heart. This poor person. They just asked me if they could speak to me. They had some similarities and wanted to find out, what I'm doing and how could they use kind of their own experience. And they said, "I'd love to pick your brain." Now, I'm going to tell you, really, that phrase drives me crazy. And here's why. And this because our words are creative, right? We create with our words. We create our our lives with the way we communicate. It's generative. So for me, when I hear that phrase, and I'm such an image-based person, that when someone says to me they want to pick my brain, I just imagine them with a dental pick wanting to go in through my ear, through my eye, and getting in there and picking all the crevices of knowledge out of my brain, of which I have spent literally thousands of dollars and years of my time to pack full of information. And so I said, "Do you mind if I give you some thoughts?" And they said, "Sure, fire away." Now, here's the deal. This is where I spoke to be heard, or wrote to be heard in this case, which is even worse, right? Why could like, oh my gosh. I know all this. Texting or writing an email is not the way to do this. Pick up the phone, have a conversation, but I didn't. I sent an email and I said, "Hey, I just want to say to you, I loathe that phrase," and I'm paraphrasing now. "I loathe that phrase, pick your brain, and here's why." And I gave them the reason why. "And is there any way that you could ask a request of me to have some time with you without using that phrase, or at the very least, make me feel like I'm getting something out of the conversation too?" Because, as a coach, and I give a lot of free sessions out to students, and I'm there for people a lot, but for whatever reason, that moment and that phrase got me. And I think back at that time, well, yes, I was setting my boundaries. I was thinking about what I wanted to say or what could be heard. What I was missing completely in that art of enrollment was, how can I say what I need to say that would actually inspire him or the person to think or feel or do something, right? I just wrote from a place of, I need to say this. I need to hear this out. And I realized I was speaking from a point of frustration, but I'm not going to inspire them to be in a different space because they're going to be hurt. Of course, right? I'm sure they're reaching out to someone that they, for whatever reason, admire, or they've been in one of my classes. And so for them, it meant something to reach out to me. And I'm sure it might even been nervous for them to do it. So there was one. I did not show up well there. And it really made me think of, how can I express what I need to say in a way that actually inspires people to do something differently, or to think with more, in a more open way, or to shift a perspective. And listen, I speak and talk to people all the time, but that was a failure. And then later on in the week, I had another conversation. I had committed to something that I realized, as the commitment was coming up closer and closer, I realized I'm not that excited about doing it. And I take my commitments really seriously, but I just realized there was a long commitment. It was like 3 months long every week. And it was just going to be, I realized it was going to be tough for me to really commit to that at this point in my life. But it was hard for me. And I could have just said, "Hey, this is what I'm facing. This is hard for me." And instead, I told them that. And then I shared some information around what I thought about their leadership. And boy, did they not need that. That was not part of the conversation at all. And again, I think I was bringing my own frustration into this, but I was speaking to be heard and not speaking to enroll. Like, my desire is to bring people in so that we can have these great conversations. But the way I did that then was not a way to do that. And it's really interesting as I go forward and I'm trying to think, how do I set my boundaries? How do I state clearly what I need or want? which I think is important, but also how do I do it in a way that people are wanting to join me on this journey of life? That how can I set a boundary and walk side by side with someone? Like, it's an interesting thing to be influential, powerfully influential, without turning people off, or, powerfully setting your boundaries without making people want to turn away from you. Yeah, boy. Thanks, Anne-Marie. But it's all been this week, I'm telling you. And I think for all of us to think about, how do we reach out and really be conscious about the messages that we're going to send, and really think about, what do I want this person, whether it be one person, 5 people, or 1,500 people, what do I want them to think, feel, and do after receiving this message from me? And what I'm clunkily learning right now is I have to be conscious when I speak to that, because otherwise all I am doing is speaking to be heard. And there's importance to that for sure, speaking to be heard, but I want to elevate my game. And for everyone who wants to come with me, I want to elevate your game as well, to be powerfully inspirational, to be able to gain people's desire to come into the sandbox with you. Powerfully playful. I love that. That was my word, Sharon. Anyway, I just wanted to share a couple of times that I failed this week for sure. And failure is painful. I don't think I showed up well for myself. And I certainly think I caused unneeded or warranted pain for people. I've already reached out to my dear friend, but I want to reach out to the other person that I pained and let them know, here's my learning from this. And I'm going to continue this conversation with you all, especially if you're interested in how do we have these conversations, especially as coaches, that really speak into existence the people that we're talking to. How do we bring them life and inspiration, and instead of tearing them down or making them feel smaller? And that is a conscious choice for sure. And really doing it all the time, not just when you're fully slept and had your coffee and alert, but even in those times of frustration. And I think that takes real conscious thought to be able to do that. But it's definitely a practice I want to be in. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining me tonight. Thanks for your comments. I'll be back every Sunday. I'll see you later. Bye, friends. Thanks, Anne-Marie.